Okay, day 20 of the Bible reading. This is Exodus. Oh, it's Inauguration Day, by the way. This is 2021. Exodus, let's see, Exodus 7 through 9. Okay, this one got a little bit confusing because there was more verses in the King James Version in one of these chapters than in the New American Bible. Okay, so now I'm not feeling sorry for Moses or God, because God tells Moses, okay, again, I think I touched on this last time. Why does God speak to Moses to speak to Aaron to tell him what to do instead of just going straight to Aaron? You know, God going straight to Aaron and saying, okay, Aaron, this is the stuff I want you to do. Because God's telling Moses what to tell Aaron. That's just silly nonsense. And so, anyways, and why I don't feel sorry for God or Aaron, because God's telling Moses to tell Aaron that he's going to let the people go completely free. But what God tells Moses, I don't remember, I didn't catch this part. I should have, but I didn't. But Moses is telling Pharaoh that God just wants the Israelites to go worship God in the desert, meaning that they're coming back. You see what I'm saying? So Moses, maybe the real reason Pharaoh is objecting to this, because he knows they're not going to come back. He knows that they're not going to worship God. They're trying to get away. So instead of just being straightforward and saying, you know, let my people go permanently, he's like, let my people go worship God for a few days and then we'll be back. And then God's still playing the game this whole time. God's still playing this game where you tell Pharaoh to do, you know, if he doesn't let you go, I'm going to do this. And then then I'm going to harden Pharaoh's heart. Well, what happened to this free will crap? You can't believe in free will if God's going to be doing what he wants to do with your emotions. You know, why punish Pharaoh if you're the one hardening his heart? You know, this just makes no sense. This God is a jerk. So chapter 9, let's see, no, I'm sorry, I was supposed to start at 7. Chapter 7, let's see, how did he do? Oh, okay, so the first, the first 1 or 2 plagues, there were 7 plagues total. What was happening was God would tell Moses to tell Aaron, let my people go. If you don't let my people go, then there's going to be a punishment. And the punishments are what we call the plagues. What we now, what we've colloquially called the plagues. Anecdotally called the plagues. And so the first plague was turning water, the water from the river or river, right, to blood. So Pharaoh says, Aaron, God tells Moses to tell Aaron to say, if you don't let my people go, I'm going to turn your river into blood. And there would be no drinking water, because people got the water, apparently the people got the water from the river, not wells. So Pharaoh says, not going to let your people go. Aaron stretches out his staff, touches the water, and turns to blood. Now here's the thing. Pharaoh's magicians were able to do the same thing. Okay, first, if God is the God, how are the magicians able to do the same thing? They must have a God or gods too that are also that are helping them get this done. Second thing, if he already turned the water into blood, how do you know, how were the other magicians able to do the same thing? Because the water's already blood. I already turned the water into blood, so how do you turn it into blood again to prove that? And what were they trying to prove? Like, that their God is real? Well, obviously, if they were able to turn the water into blood, their God or gods are real too, also. So, I don't understand this. This whole story doesn't make sense. So, what is this like? I don't know. I don't understand it. And then the second plague was frogs. And let me see, but the magicians also did the same thing. Okay, so yeah. Okay, so God told Moses to tell Aaron that, let my people go again. And if you don't, then I'm going to have frogs, a plague of frogs. God's going to send a plague of frogs to get everywhere, in your houses, in your ovens, in your barns. And so Pharaoh says no. So the frogs come. But then again, Pharaoh's magicians are able to do the same thing. Again, same two questions. If the frogs already came down, infested everything, how are the magicians able? It's already done. How would they be able to prove that the frogs came from them when they were already there? Because Moses or Aaron did it, And second thing, it's like, what are you trying to prove? Their gods or gods were able to do it. So what? Like, I don't understand. How does that make him the Lord? I don't know. But anyways, then 7 to land, third plague. Oh, okay. Now here's where this gets a little bit confusing, because the third plague in the New American Bible is gnats, but in the King James Version it says they were lice. Okay, so stretch out a staff and strike the dust so that they may be turned. Okay, now in the King James Version no, I don't think it was this one. Okay, that's later. Okay, so again, King James Version said lice, New American Bible says gnats. Two different things. The fourth plague was flies. Was it the same? Yeah, I think it was the same in both versions. The fourth plague. And again, all through this, the Lord is playing. Oh no! Let me go something with the flies. Oh no, it was the gnats. In neither version did God, because I looked, I read, I had to go back to the King James audio version and make sure I got this right. But with the gnats, between the second plague, which was the frogs, and the third plague, which was the gnats, there was no suggestion from God to Moses to tell Aaron that let my people go. It went right from frogs to gnats, with no talking to Pharaoh about trying to let the people go again. The frogs were still there. Then the Lord told Moses to tell Aaron just to strike the ground and make gnats appear, or lice in, wait a minute, no, was it gnats? Yeah, or lice in the King James Version. So there was no saying, okay, we're going to make, these, and so who knows, maybe it was, food for the frogs to eat. The gnats were out there, so the frogs could eat the gnats. I don't know. But anyways, Present yourself to Pharaoh. Okay, so the fourth plague, he does present himself to Pharaoh and makes the same deal. You know, let my people go, or I'm going to send flies. Pharaoh says no. So the flies come. So now you got frogs and gnats / lice. And now you're getting flies. So then after the flies, Pharaoh says enough is enough, you can go. But then God hardens Pharaoh's heart. See, I mean, this is just a God game with emotions. You know, playing on people's emotions. So then, of course, Pharaoh hardens his heart. And now, here's where it gets... Okay. Let me see. I can't remember. In one of these chapters... The King James Version, I thought I wrote it down, but I guess I didn't. The King James Version had a few more, one has 32 verses and the other one has 28. Okay, so this must have been chapter 8. In chapter 8, the King James Version has 32 verses. The New American Bible has 28. So I got a little confused over there. And that's why I'm kind of back, you know, reading off this script here. Because it kind of confused me. I tried to go back to see what the King James Version said. According to the New American Bible, I couldn't follow along because the verses were different. You know, the verses weren't in tune with each other. So now we got chapter 9, the 5th plague, which is pestilence, according to the New American Bible. Now let me see, my writing had to get really small here. The 5th plague was... Okay, now the King James Version calls it murrain. And I had to look that up. Pestilence seemed to be more of a generic term for some sort of, you know, infection. Most likely boils on a person's skin. But murrain is... or maybe an animal skin, but murrain is strictly for cattle. It's the cattle, like boils on the skin of cattle. So there was a little bit of ambiguity in the New American Bible, whereas King James Version was more direct toward the cattle. And so, in the New American Bible, it says all the livestock we're going to have get the pestilence, except for, now this one, I didn't really pay attention, but this one I noticed, this 5th plague, I noticed that the Egyptians were not to get this particular plague. Okay, this was for the Egyptians only. Now the 6th plague, according to the New American Bible, was boils. And, for the boils, they took soot from the fireplaces and threw it up in the air. And it scattered. And that, I guess, I'm assuming where the soot landed, like whoever it landed on, it would cause boils. It said in man and animal. So man and animal got that. Again, I think this one was only geared toward the Egyptians. Now the 7th plague, according to the New American Bible, was hail. Now this one, according to the King James, was pestilence. Now the pestilence took form of hail. So I think King James Version was using pestilence in a more generic term to mean anything bad. Because originally, in the King James Version was saying, you know, God said, I'm going to put a pestilence on there, and then he's more direct as to, more specific as to it being hail. Now it says, now get this, it says for the Egyptians, I'm going to send, if you don't let my people go, I'm going to send hail, and any animal, any man or animal out in the field, you know, and the field hands would be the slaves, they'll be struck down with hail, meaning killed by hail. So let's see. I thinking again this was just for geared towards the Egyptians, which how could you possibly, even the best pitcher in baseball could not direct a ball to hit 100% of the time exactly who they wanted to hit. So it's like, how do you hit the Egyptians with hail but not the Israelites? The Israelites were the slaves of the Egyptians, supposedly. So how do you get it to where your hail's not going to hit the Israelites? And how do you get it so that it's just hitting the people in the field and not destroying their houses? Because their houses weren't as sturdy as they are now, and they didn't have window panes. And so how would you keep it from getting into the house and killing the people in the house? It would come through the blank spaces of the windows or the doors. I don't know. So anyway, so it says, if I'm remembering correctly, it says that some of the Egyptians did start to fear this god and this pestilence being because they saw the results of all these plagues that were being predicted. So some of them did bring in their slaves and cattle. But the slaves and the cattle that were out in the field were killed by the hail. The slaves, who were slaves, why should they have been killed? And obviously there were there were slaves other than the Israelites in Egypt, because the Israelites, from what I'm reading, didn't get hit with hail, but it does say some slaves did get hit with hail, so they must have had other, maybe they were fellow Egyptians, maybe they were from some other culture, I don't know, but something to think about. So what, in other words, it wasn't just the Israelites that were enslaved in Egypt. There were other, cultural slaves of different cultures. And so, let's see. And there was lightning during the hail. Lightning and thunder during the hail. Sounds like a tornado to me. It struck down every man and the beast. Only the land of Goshen where the Israelites was there no hail. Okay, so now it's saying even though the Israelites were slaves, they were put in different areas. See, this is not jiving, okay, because now the Israelites are somewhere else. They're not working for the, the civilians. Apparently now they're just working for Pharaoh because they're in their own little area. This doesn't make any, okay, so verse 27, it's talking about Pharaoh changing his mind. Pharaoh says, just leave. I see what you're telling is the truth. The Lord's the Lord, blah, blah, blah. Just leave. And Moses says, as soon as I leave, we get out of here. Because he was telling Pharaoh he needs a 3-day head start, to travel out to the desert so they can make their sacrifice. In other words, they were trying to get a head start before Pharaoh realizes, hey, they're not coming back, and goes after them. That's really what it is. Anyways, he says, as soon as we get the heck out of Dodge, I'll get these plagues to stop. And now it says here, I think this is just a tushy saver, so the story kind of makes sense. Chapter 9, verse 31. Now the flax and the barley were ruined because the barley wasn't ear and the flax and bud. But surprise, surprise, the wheat and the spelt were not ruined, for they grow later. So in other words, that's how they're trying to get to, well, what did the Egyptians eat if all their crops were destroyed by hail? How were they going to live? This is their tushy saver right here. Anyways, chapter 33, or verse 33, when Moses left Pharaoh's presence, he had gone out of the city, extended his hands to the Lord. Then the thunder and the hail ceased, and the rain no longer poured down upon the earth. But Pharaoh hardened his heart again, because God made him harden his heart. You know, it's like, you know, why? The only thing God's proven to me is that he's a jerk. So here's curtain close for today. Now, as I said, today is Inauguration Day, January 20th, 2021. Biden is being sworn in. Harris is being sworn in. My partner, who's pro-Trump, but I don't know how radical he is. I turn him in a heartbeat. He's saying that Biden is mentally incapable, and that he's going to step down and Harris will become president, and that was their plan all along. Sounds good to me, as long as we got the orange one out of office. I don't see Biden as mentally incompetent. I did see Reagan as mentally incompetent, especially towards the end. You could tell he was suffering from dementia. Is Biden? I mean, I'm hearing that he is only from Republicans, you know, and it does have a tendency that the dissenting party will always make stuff up about the leaders of the party that they don't like. But it's also, you know, party division where the people who are pro the party, which in this case would be the Democrats, would hide this stuff, you know, not admit this stuff. So is Biden? I haven't really heard enough of Biden to know. I tried to stay away from all that because of all this. It just put me in a bad humor listening to Trump. Last time there was an election, I after Trump made his crappy speech about how poor people were lazy and therefore undeserving of any of the services that the government provided the rich white people, I checked out of everything doing with Trump. So, like, I didn't listen to any Biden speeches. I didn't listen to any Harris speeches during this election because I was afraid Trump would come up. I did listen to 2 speeches, and it's only because they were being hosted on Twitch by Matt Dillahunty, the president or CEO of the ACA, the Atheist community of Austin, and president of the Atheist Experience. He was doing his own type of commentary, running commentary as the president, and there was also a debate with the vice president while this was going on. So that was all I could handle, really. I didn't want to listen to Trump's speeches solo. I didn't want to listen to Biden's speeches solo because I just thought it would be just too much for me. My heart was broken last time with what Trump said, and it wasn't really what Trump said. I mean, I keep saying it's what Trump said. It wasn't what Trump said. Trump's a dick. He's an asshole. He's a privileged white male that talks down about everybody else that's not a privileged Christian white male in the United States. And it was when he said that poor people were lazy and therefore undeserving, it broke my... people clapped. What he said wasn't as hurtful Because that's just what you do with, in politics. You say hurtful things about the demographic that's most likely not to vote for you. But it's the people in the whole stadium, the stadium he was speaking to, the whole stadium applauded his sentiment there. And I thought, this country doesn't deserve me. It broke my heart. And something in my brain snapped, and I've just never been the same. That's when I officially turned into a grouchy old woman. And the thing is, while I was listening to this speech, I was on my treadmill. I used to walk a treadmill before I started having sciatica pain. Before I had sciatica pain, I would walk on the treadmill 2 miles every day. Every single day I'd walk 2 miles, at least 2 miles. Sometimes 4 miles, sometimes more. On my treadmill, I was listening to this speech, and I'm saying, you fat slob. I'm on the treadmill listening to you tell me how lazy I am. And you were handed money by your parents. Hand over fist. Everything you wanted, all you had to do was run to mommy and daddy and ask, and they'd give it to you. And here I am on the treadmill when your fat self is up there on a stage telling me how lazy I am. So anyways, went off on a tangent there. You heard, if you know me, you listened to my first video where I explained why I'm an anti-masker. Anyways, so I didn't listen to anything Trump had to say this time because I just didn't want to be hurt. I didn't want to be hurt by people flapping about him saying something stupid like Hispanic people are rapists. And the guilty always accused, isn't that the case? He's the biggest rapist around. He's pointing fingers at other people being rapists and doing the QAnon, endorsing the QAnon conspiracies about how all the Democrats are child predators, when the only child predator he knows is what he sees in the mirror. Anyway, so we'll see what happens. Today's supposed to be a day. They got a lot of security around the White House where this is supposed to, or is it the White House where, I think it's the White House where, or the Capitol where this ceremony is supposed to take place. I don't think that they're going to allow a lot of civilians coming to see the ceremony because of the security risk. There's supposed to be the radical right was threatening violent protests again. They were supposed to have a violent protest on the 17th. I didn't hear anything about that. I didn't hear that anything happened. I did hear a couple little tiny incidences. I told you about that yesterday, where at the checkpoints there was a few people trying to slip in with weaponry or under false pretenses, saying they were police officers when they weren't, something like that. But I've heard of no big violent protest that was supposed to be planned. So maybe today there will be nothing, or very little. I don't see how anybody would get away with anything, being that there's so much security at that's going to be there at the ceremony. We'll see. Trump. Another thing is Trump himself is having his own little going away party this morning at I forgot they said where it was located at. He's gonna have it. Man, I wish I would remember where he said he was gonna have it, but he was gonna have, I don't know, a few performers there. This was a party setup. It's like planning your own surprise party or planning your own baby shower. I mean, this is not something you, or